Hello, everybody. This is Adam Stone in IT, the temporary, occasional, and acting Chief Information Officer and Division Director of IT. I'd like to welcome you all to LabTech 2020. I really appreciate you all joining instead of doom scrolling New York Times or Twitter or whatever it is you want to do. I know there's a lot going on in the world today. And I do want to say, though, I do have some late breaking news, some promise that our national nightmare may be over. That's right. McDonald's McRib coming back for the first time since 2012. It's hard to believe that it's been 8 years since the first LabTech. When we started, we wanted to build an event where we could bring together the LBL community around the promise of technology, from scientific computing to productivity to collaboration and more. And if you go back through those LabTechs, you'll find that big parts of them were devoted to themes that really couldn't be more important than today. Themes like real-time collaboration, remote collaboration, working together from anywhere. And then, of course, we also had marauding turkeys captured by turkey cams. But these themes of how technology could make us more productive and, sorry, there's like 100 and something people here.
Daddy, there's something weird in the backyard. Definitely weird.
Okay, I can't do this right now. Sorry, you guys gotta go take care of it. Sorry about that. Sorry, I was saying that the themes of how technology could make us more productive and how we could work together and collaborate, they're all there through the earliest LabTechs, from bringing people together in tents and in food lines to talking about how laboratories are more than places. They're places where great minds can build and dream together. And if you go back to LabTech 2014, some of you may remember we covered the history of video conferencing from the earliest times of LBL Slack scientists conferring by television with government-funded ashtrays on display there. And then we had a visit from Lawrence himself, or at least the ghost of Lawrence, into a Google Hangout to talk about how conferencing would have saved him from flying to Los Alamos and DC so often. And for those of you who were there, you may recall that he was a little disappointed to learn about his beloved Bevatron. But what does all of that mean? It means that in many ways, LBL was uniquely prepared for what happened to us in March. As a community, we've understood the value of anytime, anywhere collaboration for a long time and constantly pushed the boundaries to make our international and national collaborations work. When we look out across our peers, this wasn't a foregone conclusion. Many labs and research universities began the pandemic without laptops, without video conferencing software, even without file sharing that was usable from offsite. A lesser CIO might give us some pats on the back. The thing is, the kudos belongs to the entire laboratory community. Collectively, we understood the value of distributed teams, simple and low friction collaboration, and more. And as the pandemic began, we learned new ways of working. We learned the pluses and minuses of working at home, from the lack of team interaction to the easy access to the—
There is something really weird in the backyard, and you have to see it now.
Sorry, I still have to do this. You guys have got to go take care of it. Sorry about that. The lack of team interaction to the easy access to the kitchen, the ergonomics of your kitchen table, and the interruptions of being at home. Teams found new ways to share and keep in touch. And of course, we zoomed ourselves to exhaustion. For a long time, we were focused on what we could be focused on, getting work done, understanding the rules during these times, keeping ourselves and our loved ones as safe as we could. But today, 9 months in, we face new challenges: hybrid teams, 1,000 people of our peers on site each week, and more working from home. Another year of max telework, hundreds of new employees at the laboratory who've never met their peers or even supervisors face to face, and an ever-growing desire for teams to get together in the physical world to just talk and brainstorm and draw. Look, I'm not naive. Technology alone can't make all this work.
What do we do with this?
Why did it have to be turkeys again? Okay, just let it go, okay?
Fine.
Oh, thanks.
It was in the backyard.
For a long time, I said we were focused on what we could be focused on, getting our work done and keeping ourselves and loved ones safe. And then we changed, right, to supporting hybrid teams and more. Look, I'm not naive. Technology alone can't make all this work, but together we can continue to push the boundaries and try to make what LBL is special, not only work better, not just work, but work better than it has before. Maybe we'll never quite replicate the 1978 LBL Goes Hawaiian party from a formal and informal collaboration perspective, but I believe that our technology and culture can make it work. Look, collaboration is in our DNA, right? We've said this before. You've heard lots of people at the laboratory say that. And what we mean by, right, Lawrence came to this little unknown land-grant university because he understood the opportunity to work across disciplines and in ways that a research university at the time couldn't support. He built teams, and the teams built machines and culture and organization, and they built discovery. And now we're faced with new challenges. It's on us working together to figure out how to work together in new ways that transcend what we thought was possible. And that's what we mean by work together. It's a name, a website, a theme, and an aspiration. How can we view this time simultaneously as a hindrance to some of our work, some of our most important work, and an opportunity for other parts? Can we use the tools and culture together to realize Lawrence's vision and our incredible history of bringing together great minds for the good of the world? And can we get through next Thursday without a complete breakdown of Zoom? Well, let's find out as we move to figure out how we work together. So let's start out with chat. We think chat is one of the most important tools available at the laboratory and an important antidote to Zoom fatigue. This HBR study that's on the screen, Harvard Business Review that's on the screen right now, talks about studies that they've been doing that find that successful remote teams communicate in bursts. They don't spend all day in Zoom talking to each other because they're actually doing work. But there are times when they have very high, nearly synchronous communications, either by video or by chat. And those times when everyone's working at their own work and also communicating with each other are some of the most important, components for successful remote teams. So think about the continuum between real-time video on Zoom and asynchronous email, where you don't know when you're going to get the response. Somewhere in the middle is a sweet spot for a lot of the communication that teams have. And that's what we believe that we can get with chat. So let's take a look at the new Google Chat. There are lots of new features in chat, but the one that I want to focus on is rooms. So rooms are down here, as you've probably found on your left-hand side. And they can be containers for important chat records together along with files and tasks. Rooms persist when people leave and when the team changes, so that people can be added to the team's history. Rooms can also be used for projects, groups, or just tasks. So let's create a new room called Work Together. And I'll add this important box here, allow people outside your organization to join, and then I'll invite some people. Let's invite Jay Krause and Luis Corrales and Tammy Campbell and Ian. And we'll use this new room, which will appear right down here at the bottom after it comes up, with 5 members, and create a new thread called Work Together. You notice that now that I'm in the room, it's taken over my Gmail. Even though my Gmail is still here, I can still go back to the inbox. So let's ask the question to work together. What more can IT do to be helping LDL work together? We've already got messages. So I'll refresh here. Hey Jay, hey Tammy, join us in the other thread where we can find out more about how to work together. So one of the things that how about showing people how they can use augmented reality to work remotely? We will definitely get to that, Luis. What else can we do? Let's look at some of the things that we can do in the chat window. So one of the things that wasn't possible before is I can actually add an emotion directly to chat that's going on. So I can give a thumbs up by searching here, or a thumbs down to Luis's idea, and we can record how people react to those kinds of things. In addition to chat, we can also do things with files and tasks. So one of the things that I can do here is add a file, for example, from my desktop. I'm going to add a file that is a PDF. This is actually what we used for symptom screening in the early days at the Gates, and I think it's still in use today. So here's me adding that to the room. And so it enters the chat, but also in files now, we'll see that that file is here for everyone in the room to use, and everyone can access it. If I instead had chatted a Google Doc here, and let's bring one up real quick so that we can get there. I can do that from the Drive icon. Do my searches, and add this LabTech Work Together Brainstorm document. Once I send this, you'll see it prompts me to share with room members. I can give everyone edit rights and share the document right in the room. What's interesting here is that I can now click Open in Room, and now we have yet another layer in our Gmail. Everything exists in Gmail. We've got our Gmail on the left, we've got the chat in the middle, and then we've got a Google Doc. So I'll ask And then it looks like there are people already there in the Google Doc. So we can add and see all of the real-time features all here in the room. In addition to files and chat, I can also create tasks for people. So one of the, I can add a room task, and the name of that task is going to be add whiteboarding to the list. I can also add a date and time that I want it done by and assign it to someone, like Luis. And now that's a task in the room that everyone can see. And it also appears in Luis's sidebar email, along with his regular Google tasks. This view in Gmail is new and unique and allows you to have almost all of your interaction in one place. We have the work together room at the bottom here, but I can also make it larger and take over the screen. I can also access this in chat.google.com, where you have a dedicated view of chat altogether. And if I ever get tired of this, of the amount of chatter on this room and I need to take a break, I can always turn off notifications here. And then if someone mentions me, it'll still come up, but I won't get constantly interrupted by the room. And especially that's really useful when there are rooms with a lot going on. Before we leave chat, I want to mention webhooks real quick and other advanced features. So you may, if you've been to previous LabTechs, you've heard us talk about bots. We think that building bots into rooms is very, very easy at this point. But there are also webhooks. So webhooks allow you to have a simple external application. So for example, a server at the advanced light source that constantly says whether or not the beam is up or down. Creating managed webhook here allows you to create a webhook in the room that server can talk to and just quickly post information. We did a little bit of an experiment here with a webhook test created by Phil Butler, connected to the COVID management spreadsheet. And basically the COVID management spreadsheet looked every hour to see which employees hadn't completed all the requirements for coming on site that day and chatted them into the room. Simple thing to do and can really add value to teams in this way. So that's what I wanted to say about chat today. We really, again, think that the adoption of chat, which has already been enormous at the laboratory, really creates unique opportunities for teams to work more closely together throughout the day and to really satisfy that need for bursty communications without the asynchronous nature of email or the occasionally exhausting real-time nature of Zoom. So as we think about the continuum of ways that people normally share, we mentioned work is a continuum, right? From the core work that we do every day to sort of the work adjacent communications, like I read this journal article, did you see that? Are you interested in that? To the completely social. And the truth is that in a research environment that's built on collaboration, all of these are incredibly important, right? We need to be able to have those water cooler interactions, the kitchenette, the cafeteria, and the reading room, which turns out to be hard when you're working in your kitchen. So one way that we can try to address that is with a new tool called Currents, which is focused on social sharing. You can get to Currents from the waffle menu up here and come down to the thing here, which is called Currents. Currents has no we didn't name it, it has no relation to the old LBL publication. And what you'll see here are posts from people. This will be very familiar to you if you've used Facebook before. It'll have that same feeling of Facebook in terms of how you share and how you control your sharing, minus the feeling that you're potentially killing our democracy. So what you're seeing now is the mainstream, and I can make a post here. Let's say that I want to post about the HBR article on burstiness really inspired me. And I'll come over here, I'll grab that URL. And maybe I can tag someone too. I think Luis might be interested in this, and I'll do that here in the main room. And this will be visible to everyone at the laboratory. If they come in, they can follow me, they can not follow me, they can mute me, and they can see what other people at the laboratory are doing. We can see that Marcia has posted things already here today, as well as Lisa and Karen. It's great, we're starting to see adoption of this. One of the things that we think is really cool here is the ability to create communities. So not just a stream that everyone can see, but you can create communities that are limited to a certain set of people or limited to people who are just interested in a particular topic within the laboratory. So from a community, I can create a new community. Let's name this one Work From Home Futures. I can choose whether or not to restrict it to LBL. I can choose whether or not people can find it and choose whether or not people need to ask to join. I won't make any of this. This will be a public one, and you're welcome to play along at home if you'd like, and come find this in Currents right now. But let's reshare the HBR article here and ask the question. What do we think people think about this? And then I can do all the same things that I would normally do in a social network, like tagging people, asking for their help, and getting their input on things. So we view this as an interesting way to replicate like the reading room experience, right? You come through and, I read this journal article. What do people in my group think about this? And even just water cooler, right? A place to post images of pets and things like that. You can start using Currents now. We think it's a useful addition to the repertoire, and it solves an interesting niche problem in terms of keeping our communities together during this time when we're apart. So now whiteboarding and diagramming. Whoop. As you walk around offices and conference rooms at Berkeley Lab, you can see indications all over the place of how important visual thinking and drawing is to our work. Zoom has a whiteboard built in, and many of you have probably used it, but it's actually pretty limited. It's really interesting. It's actually limited in exactly the same way that conference rooms are limited, which is to say that when you leave the conference room, there's no guarantee that your whiteboard is going to stay there after you leave. So we take pictures of them and file those away and never go back to them before. Well, we think teams can benefit a lot from new whiteboard technology, and one of those technologies is Jamboard. So I'm going to show you Jamboard, which everyone has access to today, although it's not actually in the waffle menu. You can go to jamboard.google.com. And I'm going to create a new Jamboard for us to think about issues related to improving scientific computing access during work from home. So for this one, since we're focused on scientific computing, I'm going to invite some people from the scientific computing team. I'm going to invite Wei and Jackie and Gary, Shaw, and Jeff, if I can type Jeff. And we'll share that with a help me message. Whiteboards can be created quickly, and they're completely persistent. Once you start working in a Jamboard, the Jamboard lasts forever in your Google Docs, just like everything else does. I'm going to, just because it takes a minute, oh, it looks like they're all there. I'm not going to share it in chat then. They all got here really quickly. Sometimes it can take a second. So I'm going to start by putting a Post-it in the room. How can we help scientists use scientific computing during WFH? So now let's see if those folks who are in the room from the scientific computing team can add some thoughts to the room now. So there's some interesting tools along the left-hand side while we wait for them to add some Post-its and other thoughts. And I may add some in a second. So for starters, we can change the background and make it graph paper. We can grab the pen and start drawing in the room. We can, oh, and we've got more Post-its coming in. So, and of course, once I move to the cursor, then we can move these things around and start grouping them into groups. One of the interesting things that you can do is you're not limited to being in your account is not limited to being in one Jamboard just once. So I'm logged into Jamboard here on my iPad. I'm going to take out my Apple Pencil and refresh, and I should be able to see this. And once I do that, you'll see I'm still logged in on the version that you can see there. But in addition to that, I can use either my finger or my pencil, my Apple Pencil, to draw more comfortably in the room. And you'll see those things appear as I do that here. I can also highlight from here. Intended to highlight, not cross out. And all kinds of other opportunities. And you can do that again from your phone, where your finger is a lot easier to use than drawing on the screen, at least for me, for the mouse. So once you have the Jamboard going, you can actually create multiple pages within a Jamboard. So if I click to the right here, we can open up another place to work. And then on the left, we can also add images and text of all kinds. That Jamboard, as you saw earlier, has all the same sharing mechanisms that a normal Google Doc does. I can make people editors or just viewers. I can make the link available to anyone at the laboratory, or I can make it available to anyone in the world. And of course, just as you're seeing right now, I can put that whiteboard inside a Zoom so that we can, so that the Zoom and video and audio and Jamboard can all work together at the same time. And like I said, these last perpetually, and they're a great way to keep teams together and thinking about demoing and showing things visually that aren't really possible when we're not in rooms together. Okay, thanks scientific computing team. I'm gonna close up the Jamboard now. So let's talk about real-time communication. So needless to say, I'm not going to cover the basics of Zoom today. If you are the sort of person who is here in this audience today and has managed not to become familiar with Zoom, I would like you to contact me so that I can get some career advice from you, because you have done an amazing job of staying out of 9 hours of Zoom for the last however many months. You know, I said it earlier, but I think it is worth a moment of reflection. LBL was incredibly well prepared to enter the video conferencing pandemic. While our colleagues were putting in emergency procurements and claiming that there were security flaws, we had thousands of people at LBL who were comfortable using Zoom, already had accounts for everyone at the laboratory, had professionals in IT who were capable of helping people through it, of answering questions and everything else. So here's some crazy statistics for you. Since the pandemic began in March, LBL has hosted 250,000 Zoom meetings with 1.4 million participants. We've done 64 million minutes of meetings. That's the number of participants times the length of the meeting. And in all of that time, to the best of my knowledge, we had no incidents driving emails like the one my kid's school district sent home about 6 weeks in, reminding us to be both fully clothed while our children are online and avoiding distracting behaviors such as dancing, which led to great conversations on the Alameda Facebook groups about, for example, the fact that we now seemed a little bit like the tiny town from Footloose. But whatever it is, it turns out to be pretty hard to demo cool new features of Zoom to you while we're in fact in a Zoom webinar. I wish I could have pulled it off, but we'll stick with static here for a second. I think you all have seen by now, if you've been using Zoom for a while, that the features just keep on coming. And it turns out, interestingly, that the pandemic has been a great time for Google, Microsoft, Zoom, and other companies in terms of quickly releasing features that people needed during this time period. This week alone, there were 3 releases from Zoom with various feature updates. And over time, we've seen this incredible growth of features, from early investment in the security management to stop Zoom bombing and make sure the people in the room were the ones you wanted, to continuous improvements in usability, accessibility, and just general features. So a couple things to draw your attention to that are just really recent. The breakout room improvements for those of you who are hosting large meetings or conferences are really cool, because they now allow people to choose which breakout room they want to go to on their own, rather than you having to assign them to it. That's on the left-hand side here. And you know, it may be a silly thing, but enterprise Zoom backgrounds are here. So if you go to click your virtual backgrounds today, you'll see a whole set of things that we've pre-uploaded for you that you can choose from, including all the ones that the folks in strategic comms and creative services have worked on for you. And of course, that doesn't stop you from using your own cat as a background whenever you want to. We're not going to, you know, we're not trying to micromanage that. And the other thing that I wish I could show you today, but I can't, but I think it's one of the most useful things, is the ability to reorganize Zoom windows. If you haven't tried it yet, the next time you're in a meeting with 4 or more people, just grab one of the boxes that you don't like the location of and move it to the place you want. You can now completely reorganize how you see meetings. And also, as the host, you can also do things like that and help your people to see the set of people that you want. So that's what's going on with Zoom. Again, too many features to cover here. Miles will be covering many more features and usability issues, suggestions later on in the day today. And I don't want to lose track of Google Meet here either. So, so Google Meet is available to you in your Gmail and at meet.google.com. It's a very similar product to Zoom, and we're lucky to have 2 things. I realize most people spend most of their day in Zoom and probably haven't checked too much out around Meet. Meet has some cool features, like its integration with Google Documents, as well as its ability to blur your background without doing a virtual background, which is pretty cool. It also has pretty amazing noise reduction for background noise, although Zoom is doing a great job there too. And finally, it has live captions, which Zoom is just in the process of releasing from a third party. So there'll be parity there too, but right now you can get live captioning of your meetings and save the actual text description of your meetings right there in Google Meet. So it's definitely worth checking out. So that's where we are with that. So, but sometimes even having 2 video conferencing products, there are unique needs to try new things, and so and to have niche solutions to different problems. So one of the problems that we know about is that we've now got hybrid teams where you've got people at the laboratory working on complex equipment that they may not have a lot of familiarity with, or are used to having someone else around to explain to them or help them through. Maybe even new postdocs at the laboratory who've never worked in that laboratory before with people who knew exactly how that equipment worked. And at home, you've got people with decades or of experience, right? Knowing how to work those things. So how can those two people work together? Well, we think real-time and mixed and augmented reality is an important way to help with that. And so we're currently piloting a tool called Help Lightning. There are several of these kinds of tools on the market. And what Help Lightning does is it allows you to provide help to someone remotely by visually overlaying your hands and drawings on top of their real environment. So for those of you who've been to many lab techs before, I think we always have at least a couple of live demos that don't work. And I'm just going to preface this by saying that this is probably the one that will not work. But I'm going to try to call Jay here and see if we can get Jay on a call with Help Lightning to show you how this works. So we're waiting on, I'm now giving help. I'm going to proceed with my camera off. Hey, Jay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I could.
Sorry, we'll mute there. So Jay's got a computer there that he wants help with. I'm not going to be able to show it today because my camera is in use by Zoom, obviously, because you can see me. But if I could point my camera down at a white surface and move my hands around the screen that Jay's displaying. Yes, he's simulating it for you. And you'd actually see my hands in transparent, sort of overlaying that computer to help Jay troubleshoot. But even without showing you that, I can show you some of the other cool features here. So I can turn myself blue here and create some arrows. So Jay, you may not be aware of this, but that's a USB port. I think Jay may be muted now. So in addition to drawing arrows, we can, of course, circle things like the USB ports and the HDMI. And again, I would be showing with my finger, plug this wire in here. And then finally, we can, explain exactly what we want someone to do. So I can change to the pencil and say, Jay, this is, say, Jay, this is the thing you need to unplug from your computer. And hopefully, because of that, Jay will be able to sort of go in, figure out exactly which thing. Oh, I think he did it successfully. He unplugged himself, and thus we ended the Help Lightning demo. But anyway, we have a pilot of this going on right now. There's 6 groups across the laboratory who are piloting it. We have a few more licenses that we can share to try to get people to use it. Interestingly, not only can you do that via your phone on a smartphone, but you can also use these glasses, for those of you who have been around the IT world for a while, so will look familiar in terms of the Google Glass function, but these are actually private party glasses. They're not associated with Help Lightning, and they have a viewer here and a camera here. And what this would allow you to do is wear these either as your safety goggles or below your safety goggles, depending on what the situation was, in a laboratory, and have a live stream just like the one you saw, but instead of coming from the phone, have it coming directly from the lenses. And these have a battery life of several hours, and they work right on Wi-Fi. So they may not be the coolest looking things you've ever seen, but we think there's some opportunities in laboratories where people need both their hands free to be able to get remote assistance. So moving on to another form of real-time collaboration. Do any of you remember desk phones? I mean, it's been like a lot of months for a lot of people now, but we in fact had desk phones on our desks back when we all went to work, and they were remarkably convenient. They always work when you turn them on. They don't go through constant update processes like your cell phone does, and perhaps more importantly, depending on what your cell phone plan is, they were charged to the laboratory when you made international calls and things like that for work, of course. So anyway, long before pandemic, we'd been working to update our phone system at the laboratory. It was the timing, unfortunately, wasn't as great as it could have been, but I'm excited to announce, which most people don't know at the laboratory, that we're actually most of the way through a project to replace the PBX, the underlying phone system at the laboratory. And that will, of course, allow you, as any modern phone system will, to fully interact with your phone when you're anywhere in the world, as if you were at your desk. So what you see on the screen there are a couple of screenshots from the Avaya app. And the first 1,500 people at the laboratory will be onboarded onto this in the next couple of months. It'll take longer for the next folks to come. Those are people who already had digital phones at the laboratory. Other ones will actually have to touch phones throughout the laboratory to change them over. But over the course of the next year, everyone at the laboratory will get access to a fully featured soft phone client, which works on your desktop or your mobile device. And I said the previous demo was going to fail, but I'm going to go here for a second and see if I can show you the Avaya client here on my phone, which is pretty darn cool. So let's see if I can make that work. I've got that up here, and I'm going to new share and try to show you my iPhone. Let's see how that goes. All right, so this is the Avaya soft phone client. You can see it's synced to my calendar, so it knows about the LabTech KeyNote, as well as the postponed salsa dance lessons, which presumably I could not dial into with my phone. You can see my list of history calls, and I can find anyone in the directory that's there. I can also just click up here to start a call. And of course, we're back to desk phone dialing, right? If I want to call my regular desk number, I just call 4650 and hit call, and I'm calling my regular desk number. From here, I then have access to all of the regular features that you have on your phone. And honestly, if you have the kind of phone I have, a lot easier to get to them actually on this system than it is back on the desk phones. I can silence audio. I can add more people to the call. I can transfer the call to someone else, and I can merge calls together that are already in progress. So very, very cool. The testing so far indicates that it really doesn't affect your battery life very much at all. And we're really excited to be able to bring this out to the laboratory and have people have access to their phone system again. So I'm going to stop sharing my phone here for a second and come back over to slides. So exciting stuff coming there. Okay, so let's go to collaboration and productivity tools. So as you may, if you've been to LabTechs before, you've probably heard me say that, one of the reasons that we've been so pleased with the decision to go Google long before anyone else was doing it was the investment in the continuous advancement of the tools. And this has really never changed, right? There have been periods where we might have been frustrated with Google, have been frustrated with Google about features we thought were probably pretty easy to implement that took years. But the truth is there's been continuous investment in these tools, and they continue to advance in really great ways. So I don't have time today to show you all the things that are new since the last LabTech, because that would be a lot of things, but I just wanted to draw your attention to a couple things. So for starters, shared drives. So we've talked about shared drives at LabTech before. They've been out for over a year and a half now. They're really, really, really helpful for teams that want to have continuous sharing of documents and want to prevent an individual from accidentally removing large sections of the documents. So shared drives are much more manageable. You have much finer grained permissions and much better stability in case someone decides to remove a file or accidentally remove, for example, all of the files. So one of the limitations of shared drives was that previously you could only have permissions set at the shared drive level. So my Atom test team up here, for example, I could not make an individual folder actually shareable, but now I can. So as long as I create a new folder here, like this shared folder, I can right click and click share and actually create additional sharing preferences that are separate from the underlying shared folder. So each level of the shared folder can then have its own approvals. Another thing that didn't get a huge amount of attention was approvals. So here's a receipt. And from up here, I can right click here and click approvals in Drive. And now I can set approvals. So I'm gonna ask Luis, can you please approve reimbursement of my personal trip to Mexico? Presumably he's gonna say no. I can give him a due date of the 6th and click send request. He'll then receive an email saying that he's been asked to approve something. You can see on the screen here that approval is pending. I can then open that approval and modify it in any way. From activity, I can also see what happened. I requested a file approval. I can see when Luis views it and if he rejects it or not, in addition to the details of the document. So that's pretty cool. Approvals, we think will be useful for all kinds of different Google Docs. And then I wanted to take a minute to talk about Sheets and Data Studio. So those of you who have not been close to the management of people coming back onto the site probably don't know this, but in fact, LBL's entire response to the pandemic, beginning with the time that we brought people back on site, runs on Google Sheets. And we made that decision because we didn't know at that point how long this was going to go on for, although many of us suspected it was going to be a long time. And we quickly needed to be able to implement a solution that could scale up to the laboratory. And from those initial decisions has grown an incredibly complex set of spreadsheets that actually manage who's on site every day. And areas and divisions all across the laboratory are using the data from that to manage that. I want to show you briefly how that works. Many of you have probably experienced symptom check and have gone on. But where does that data actually go? So first of all, I want to show you the dashboard version of that. So this is the COVID dashboard. Underlying this are these very complicated sheets and other data sources. But each day on the COVID dashboard, leadership can see, and this is a product, sorry, this is a product called Google Data Studio, which many of you have not encountered. Google Data Studio is a product that can take data from multiple sources and present it visually to present things like dashboards and things like that. It's very good at aggregating data. And so we're starting to see a lot of use of this. CFO has had some great use of Data Studio, and there are others around the laboratory who are starting to use it too. But you can see this is actually getting live data from the combination of spreadsheets and data from the access control system about who's on site. One of the things that was really interesting was there was a time a couple months ago where we were starting to hear concerns, and then you saw it reflected in letters that came out from Mike and Michael about the concern about the number of supervisors on site and were there enough people supervising the folks who were actually on site. What was interesting was I was in a meeting where that was starting to be discussed, and it was the first time I had heard about it. And within 5 minutes in that meeting, I had a new section up here on the dashboard, which is actually showing the number of supervisors by area, which you see on the right-hand side here. So it's just incredibly easy once the data is in a source to then flip that data any way you want. So for example, you can see the LB&L summary data over time in terms of how many people are on the site and how many badge swipes are happening at the gates. You can see that broken out by individual areas like computing sciences. We can get data on things like the symptom check, which show us how many people were cleared this week via symptom check, and what the rate is for various things, even things like training completion for the lab overall and by individual division, and things like who were the kinds of people who were on site yesterday, right? Were they career workers or contingent workers / affiliates? All sorts of things that are possible here in the dashboard. And again, it's very easy to make these things appear. You can also then see the underlying spreadsheet. So I have to say that I knew that Google Sheets was capable of handling very, very complex things, but I never imagined that we could run the lab's restart on Google Sheets, and we have, and quite successfully. So, for example, we started with rosters of everyone at the laboratory, and then we started to bring in data about how their compliance was on LBL 12, on the symptom check, on WPC accepted, and the data their last badge in. And then over time, we grew that to include data about yesterday's badge swipes and whether or not everyone was good to go in terms of having completed all of their work. We have today's badge, and then we grew towards today's badge swipes by doing automated 15-minute updates from the badge system and the data warehouse up to Google, which then comes back down onto into the sheets. And we have all kinds of other data here, like badge swipe history and various data feeders, et cetera. And we've been able to then aggregate this data. Not only can we aggregate this data, which is actually the function of 5 or 6 spreadsheets underlying it and coming together, but then areas and divisions throughout the laboratory actually do VLOOKUPs across sheets, so from their sheet to our sheet, to find out whether or not the people who were scheduled to come, for example, actually came, and whether or not everyone's ready to go. We'll be doing a webinar about how we did this. It's not part of the plan today, but it's really, really cool and really speaks to the power that's inherent in things like Sheets. One of the things that I think is really cool here that we've just started using during pandemic is a product called SheetGo, which you see here. So SheetGo is a third-party plugin. It does cost money, but we can help you with that through licenses at lbl.gov. And SheetGo tells Google Sheets to automatically update from a source on a regular basis. So this is how we get data updating every 15 minutes. SheetGo knows where to go in Drive or in Google Cloud Storage to go get the data, and then it updates it automatically in the sheet. So really cool things we've been able to do thanks to Google that, quite frankly, our peers at other laboratories and universities have struggled a lot more with. And then I don't want to forget about tools specifically for scientists in collaboration. I think we've tried to talk about Overleaf a lot over the years. Overleaf is a Google Docs-like editor for LaTeX. So I can log in with my Google account. Everyone at the laboratory can go to overleaf.com and log in with their Google account. And we get a fully functional WYSIWYG editor for LaTeX, which compiles into what you need to do to send to journals. And I can edit that not just in source LaTeX if I'm comfortable with that, but also in rich text. So I can completely remove the note here and say, hi LabTech, click recompile, and we'll see that appear there. So Overleaf is a really useful tool, not least because like Google Docs, you can actually share with your collaborators and work on LaTeX in real time. So just more ways to work together that go beyond what Google Docs does. And finally, team tracking and project management on this front. So one of the interesting evolutions we've seen, right? We've always seen a need for tools that do project management and team tracking. And most of the times that we saw use of those tools, it was for specific projects, right? So the project actually needed to figure out when people were going to deliver things and how that all came together. And one of the interesting things trends we've seen during the pandemic is the use of team tracking and project management tools, not really to get to a specific end, but to have some idea about what your team members are talking about. Because back when we were all together in the laboratory, it was really easy to walk around and figure out what people were working on and how they were spending their day and how those things related. And then now it's much harder, right? We can work in isolation unless you're chatting or Zooming. It can be hard to know what people are working on. So we've seen adoption of these tools more for the purposes of awareness of what folks are working on than traditional project management. There are a couple of tools that we have to bring to bear on this. Smartsheet has Kanban boards and every kind of Gantt chart you can imagine. And those are available to everyone at the laboratory, although a license is required now for the editor role on Smartsheet, but you can share them with everyone. And then there's a new tool from Google called Google Tables. Tables is not technically part of our G Suite install at this point. It was just released as a beta product, but it's like a Google Sheet merged with Smartsheets in terms of how it thinks about things like project management. We're just starting to get to know this tool. It's free for everyone for basic use at this point. So we've created this work together project board. And if I go to my tasks, you can see a basic Kanban board here with, for example, add the Help Lightning pilot info to the work together site. Well, actually, I know that's done now, so I can drag this over and put it in the completed thing. I can look at the Slack master payer negotiations and assign it to someone who's, at this point, I'm the only one in this room, but I'll share it with myself and assign it to myself. And I'll get emails saying that, that it's assigned to me, for example, if I create a bot to do so. And I can move things around, like the pilot now is backlogged, and everyone can see this board and see it as I move around. So there are options like this with this product, which you can find on the Work Together site, as well as with Smartsheets, to do really cool things to just keep in touch with how your team is working. Okay, so I wanted to sort of leave those topics for a second and come into the library. I think that Michael Golden, our librarian, may be on today in the library, and I wanted to check in with him. How are you doing, Michael?
Honestly, Adam, not good. It's just so quiet here.
But Michael, you're a librarian. I thought you liked shushing people and quiet libraries.
To a point, but it's just too quiet here. The books are lonely. I'm lonely.
But there's lots of remote services, right? People can still get to all their journals and to their databases. Can they request books from you and have you get them from UCB and other places?
Books can be requested from UCB, so that's still there. And we definitely have access to everything that we had before electronically. So we're up and running as far as that's concerned.
All right, but it's still too quiet, huh? Is there anything else you want to tell people about the library?
I'll cut a deal with everyone. If you call me, I will read you your materials directly. It's just quiet, so quiet.
That's quite an offer, Michael. I think everyone probably really appreciates that, and I hope that you do in fact get some people coming into the library. Okay, so I'd be remiss if I didn't at least briefly touch on security. Later this afternoon, you can hear Jay Krause talk about the UCSF ransomware incident you see on the screen here that happened a couple months ago. The most important connection between this and security and thinking about working together in collaboration is the important thing that all of you do for us by taking appropriate care and doing appropriate backups of the systems that you're responsible for. An incident like this in the UCSF environment is something that they get over. An incident like this in the LBL environment could easily lead to reactions that cause us to really break some of the things that we've been talking about today, some of the magic of collaboration that happens at the laboratory, the lightweightness of that, and the frictionless collaboration we all all go to. So I encourage you to attend that talk this afternoon and to really take your stewardship responsibilities seriously as we think about security. So moving to science IT for a moment. So of course, part of working from home is being able to do computing rather than do experimentation for those people who do both or only one at the laboratory. And recognizing during the pandemic the centrality of a computing and data strategy to the laboratory, not just during pandemic, but in general. The lab director, Mike, chartered a committee, which will be led by Jonathan Carter, to try to chart a course for LBL's strategic approach to providing for its own computing and data needs. So this isn't about the future of NERSC or the future of ESNet. This is about how those and the services that we provide here at the laboratory through IT and in the science divisions and areas all work together to create a great environment for researchers to do their work. That committee is just getting started. It has a tight time frame of about 6 months to work to solve all the problems associated with scientific computing at the laboratory. But we're really excited for that work to begin. I'm personally very, very excited to see how that can help us chart courses for how IT can provide services and how all the different services that we provide at the laboratory can work together. While we wait for that to happen, of course, we're not sitting still. We have lots of science IT services, almost all of which are trivially available to you, whether you're at home or at work, and no matter where you are in the world. Of course, we continue to provide lots of HPC services. We saw great growth this year in the traditional HPC services, both here and on campus, which some of you know that we provide, the same team that's here provides services for HPC on campus. And we've seen continued growth of new clusters coming in from scientists at the laboratory, as well as use of our existing and new GPU resources. We continue to do work with things like scientific networking and cloud systems and scientific servers, as well as things across the board here, which you can see. I wanted to draw your attention to just a couple of really cool things, all of which you can hear about tomorrow, because tomorrow afternoon is devoted to science IT and scientific computing at the laboratory. Super cool things happening with a tool called Open on Demand in the HPC group, which allows you to have very easy web-based access to all the incredibly powerful features of the high-performance computing environment. Really, really excited about how easy it will be to interact with those incredible services. And then on the cloud discount front, as many of you know, we have master payer agreements in place with both Google and AWS, which makes it trivially easy to get you started. We also have a variety of startup grants that we can give for people who want to explore those services. And then finally, DOE-wide, led by Berkeley Lab and Richard Gregory in Telephone Services, has a DOE-wide discount agreement for the Google stuff in particular. So that's Google Cloud Computing, not the G Suite things, although that's included too. And those discounts are extraordinary, as much as 20 and 30%, and as much as 50 to 100% off egress, which we know is often a major issue for projects that are moving a great deal of data around. So really cool things happening there. You can hear more about those tomorrow. You can also hear about cool new storage technologies like Ceph, which we're working on the second generation of scientific storage for. And then finally, just to draw your attention to science IT and consulting at the bottom here, we have three staff in science IT consulting with a variety of expertise, including machine learning expertise, who are ready and waiting to help projects all over the laboratory with getting connected to the right services, with optimizing their code, with thinking through architectures for experiments, for pipelines, all sorts of things. It's really an incredible group of people. There's a lot of expertise there, and we're excited about them bringing to bear their expertise on connecting you to the right tools, whether those tools are things that are provided by us or things that exist out in the world. And finally, we continue to have great success with our training partnership with D-Lab on campus. We continue to offer the basic Python courses, as well as new things like machine learning, and other topics at your request. And all of those, of course, have moved remote, so you can participate from the comfort of your kitchen. So let's talk about the rest of the afternoon for a moment. I think the coolest thing that's going to happen this afternoon is the tent. So of course, for those of you who've been to LabTech before or saw those pictures earlier, one of the highlights of the event is the tent, where you can walk around and talk to people who are interested in computing, talk to vendors. You can have all sorts of things go on. And so we're going to try to replicate that virtually today. Hopefully, since you registered for this, you've seen things from people about the importance of installing the software. This is not a simple web plugin that will automatically download for you. You're going to want to actually follow the instructions that we've sent you, or visit labtech.lbl.gov and click on virtual tent and follow those instructions so that you can really see what's going on and figure out how to install that software so you can join us in the tent. The software is really cool. I really hope that it works out this afternoon. When you walk around the tent, and you come close to people, you'll be able to hear and talk to those people, but you can't hear the other people who are scattered throughout the tent, which is a really, really cool thing. Think about the implication of that for things like poster sessions, where you can actually walk around from poster session to poster session, talking to individual people about their poster, and then the people around you can't hear, and you can keep walking and then move to the next poster. So we've got folks in there to talk to you about cybersecurity, to talk to you about workstation support, about ergonomics. So come visit the tent, walk around. It's going to be really, really cool. And then I'm just going to bring up the LabTech schedule here for a second. It's on the LabTech site. So things will go on throughout the afternoon. That's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, the sessions are here, not on that. And so we've got a little bit of sponsor content here, but also the full thing. So you've got Tammy coming up right after me on teleworking, the new frontier. We've got Luis talking about collaborating with your remote teams, going in depth about Google Chat and Google Currents, things that I only touched on. We've got Miles coming up after that with advanced Zoom topics. Ian's going to cover collaborative projects for distributed teams, like the 2 products that I mentioned earlier. Jay will talk to you about what's new in cybersecurity, including ransomware, backups, and all kinds of threats to working from home. This one's really useful, I think, home networking for everyone with Richard Simon. One of the things that we found is that upgrades to your home network and even tweaks to your home network can make a huge difference in how well you can enjoy these services that we're making available to you. So definitely consider going there. And then into the virtual tent, I will be there. I hope all of you will too, to see us there at 4 o'clock in the virtual tent. And then tomorrow, starting at 1, Jeff will be covering cloud computing at LBL on the science side, and talking about the master of payments for AWS and Google. You'll hear more about that discount structure and cool things you can do there, far beyond things like virtual machines, right into machine learning applications and all the hundreds of services that Amazon and Google provide. Jackie's going to be giving an overview of Laurentium, and we've got Shaw doing science IT storage offerings, including the future of that. Kuldeep will be talking about the Science VM service, which is a great way to stop purchasing servers and let the Science VM service take care of the general purpose servers that your scientific area might run. And then Wei will be covering Introduction to Open on Unmanned. You get a preview of new things that are coming soon in OOD, which is that HPC portal I was mentioning. And then HPCs for sensitive data. George will be talking about what's going on campus. This isn't an LBL service, but our people are creating it for campus as a place to put more secure data. And then machine learning use cases with Fang 10, and how to go from spreadsheet data to interactive web mapping with Ling. So lots of cool content tomorrow as well. I do want to bring your attention to the sponsor content at the bottom. CDW and Dell have been generous in sponsoring this event for many years, and they've sponsored it now too. It did happen sort of at the last minute, so you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks. So that's where we end today. We're gonna, as usual, sort of a lightning tour of the collaboration and features that are available to you. I wanna invite you to check out worktogether.lbl.gov anytime that you want, and find out about all those tools and get links to them and tell us what you need. One of the most important things that we need from you is to hear about the tools that you need to make your collaborations and your remote work successful. We definitely can't be successful without you, and we're happy to listen and work with you to find new tools and repurpose existing tools to make collaboration seamless. So with that, I'll say that we can't wait to see how we all work together as this period continues and beyond. And I'm very excited about how these tools, our culture, and you can come together to really live Lawrence's vision for a collaborative laboratory that has an incredible impact on the world. With that, in just a minute or so, we'll get started with the next talks. Thanks everyone for coming to LabTech 2020.